An Estonian consular general and head of mission was abducted at gunpoint in Laboni here in Accra. And of course, we remember the 3 girls kidnapped in Takoradi since December 2018. Okay. Some reactions have come, especially from the Christian community, and we'll be evaluating all of that and asking ourselves how safe we are really, and if there is enough cause for concern. That's coming up in just a few minutes on the Super Morning Show. But before we get into that conversation, Enima and I are just going to run through a few BC tips for those anxious candidates out there. Anymore, I'm in the minds of an average BC candidate. It can't be easy.
I'm in the mind of an average parent of a BC candidate who is probably having more sleepless nights than their children. But we know for a fact that by now the kids are either on their way to the centers or at the centers already. So this morning we just want to spend a little time talking to the parents, because a lot of time anxiety is transferred from parents to children. I know that when my kids are writing exams, I am so anxious, I'm worried, I am going around them, I'm asking them questions, and what I'm actually doing essentially is transferring my anxiety to them. So it's important this morning that if your kids are writing this BEC, that you deal with your anxiety privately. So do whatever you need to do to calm down. If you need to pray, if you need to meditate, whatever you need to do, you need to show confidence to your children. It transmits to them that you trust them and that you're not afraid. The second thing is you need to act like it's not the end of the world, because it is not. It is the first of many exams that they'll be taking in their lives. And I understand that in our country, BC is so pivotal. You know what I mean? You need to do well at the BC to get into a good SSS. Otherwise, you know, it seems like your options exactly, but it is not the end of the world. And being able to exude this confidence that there are options, that we can figure this out, that we're on a journey, is important to your child's mental health. Otherwise, they feel the pressure of, if I fail at this, then that's it, you know. And then so you're also introducing the dynamic of possible failure when you do that. Another thing that you should is practice affirmations with your child. I believe it. I do it with my kids. It's important to tell them you're intelligent, you've got this, you can do this. Once you understand the question, trust yourself. It will come back to your memory. And once you've learnt it, once you've read it, it will come back. Just calm. Teach them to breathe, to be calm, to be able to pull out the answers from inside them. Because, you know, sometimes we learn things and we're not even sure of how much we know until we're tested. But it's funny, because when we believe that we actually know, somehow the answers come to us more easily. So definitely practice some affirmations with your child. We like to say in my house, I believe in myself and we can do hard things. So whatever it is that comes that is hard, you know, we conquer it. Another thing, encourage them to sleep and to relax. Big deal here. Kids don't sleep that well during exams. So it's important that you keep to their routine bedtime and that you've been doing. You don't want to keep them up too late. You don't want them to be too tired. So you want them calming down, finishing their revision early, you know, having some quiet time, talking to them and encouraging them to go to bed early. And even if they're not able to sleep, at least to relax. And finally, test prep with them. So this is really fun. You know, go online if you can. If you have old past course or whatever, do it with them. Ask them questions. Make it fun. That builds their confidence as well. You know how it is when you're doing revision and you're getting all the answers right.
What
and
if you're not getting them right?
Well, then we have a little bit of a problem. But the thing is, we trust that our teachers have taken, you know, our kids through the preparation. And so at this point, you know, they should be all right. Most importantly, pray for your kids. Because ultimately, you know, that's what makes the difference.
Of course, but you know what, anyone? That's the question I asked is really the heart of it, because a lot of parents want their kids to take this seriously.
Yes.
And it's difficult sometimes to deal with a child who may not seem focused. It may not seem to be aware of how important this is, and so me wants to chastise the child or remind the child of how important this may be.
It's a thin line. It's a really thin line. And remember that, Daniel, the average age for BEC is around 12, 13, you know, 14.
14.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it pretty young, but you know, 12, 13, 14. And so you don't want to be overly bearing. You know, it's important. Make that, it's a clear point. Overbearing, sorry. So it's important. It is a necessary exam. You need to be serious, but the added pressure the added pressure is not good for children that age. They don't really thrive. Children that age don't really thrive under that kind of pressure, like the way maybe we do as adults. So you'll probably get more of a better outcome from them by just being assertive, but trying to keep it, under control. This is important. We've got this. Let's do this, and not be, come on. You know what I mean?
Well, of course, and you really went into the next question because I wanted to know what kind of words would be best to use.
I mean, I like that, we've got this, we can do this.
But what if she feels she's fine and you can see that she's not prepared? You can see that she's not fine.
You mean academically or emotionally?
Academically.
Well, I mean, I would panic, honestly. Like, I'm sorry, but if it's the night before and you feel like your child is not ready, the most that you can do, Daniel, is to go through a few of the questions, and trust that somewhere in there, something will come up. But that's the importance of readiness. And at this point, I don't know how much we can talk about in terms of readiness, because the exams have started today. So pretty much if you're not ready by today, you don't have that much time to get ready. So really, in terms of readiness, you should be ready today. And I've been to a few of the schools, over the past few weeks. I have a couple of friends whose kids are writing, and they have been preparing. The schools have taken it very seriously, because remember that it also raises the academic profile of the school when they have a lot of children passing. So the schools have invested in the children. So I think at this point, all we can do is focus on confidence, on encouraging them, on believing in them, on making them feel like, they've got this, they can do this. And that's
As the BC candidate starts their exams today, it's my wish and prayer they will all pass successfully to enroll in President Ekofado's, you call him President Nana Showboy's free SHS to continue to shame the nation wreckers who have nothing better to offer this. Who are you referring to? Amisko from Kaswa. No, there was another kidnapping which occurred in Kumasi that Love FM reported from Ogo in Kumasi. I wish you could give me the details of that one. Yes, I can be bigger. But as Ogo's message suggests, a number of these cases have occurred across the country, and they are really, really matters that we are concerned about. We need to really accept one thing, that something must be done. But before something must be done, we need to look at it in context of what has happened and ask ourselves the question, what's the real magnitude of it, which is what I was asking earlier. And number two, what should be the reaction of authorities? So we have with us on the line Colonel Festus Abuaji, retired. He's an author, conflict analyst, and member of the Council on Foreign Relations, Ghana. And he'll be joining us with insight on these questions that we've asked and any more that we have. Good morning, Colonel. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Daniel.
Would it be fair to call the string of kidnappings that have occurred a pattern, is something or emerging as a trend in the country?
Can you repeat what you said? You were breaking a bit.
Sorry about that. Is the line better now?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see.
I was asking if it would be fair to call these cases we often list, the Canadian woman kidnapped, the Indian businessman, the Estonian consular general, is this a pattern, an emerging trend, or these are just individual cases we should consider as such?
Well, I think in a very limited sense, we can identify a trend or a shift in the nature of the kidnapping in terms of the targets or the objects of the kidnapping. I say in a limited sense because the number of cases that we are looking at and the period over which they have occurred are narrower in scope. And therefore, we may be wrong in our, extrapolations and so on. But it would appear that over the past, is it maybe 2 or 3 months, even if Ghanaians are being kidnapped, a bit of the focus is now turning towards, foreigners, including Indians, Canadians, Estonians, that you've mentioned.
Yes. Now, speaking of foreigners being targeted, Colonel, there's also the brand of crimes, which I can call terrorism, where foreigners are targeted, but locals are affected, in a collateral damage, which is something that Ghanaians should be worried about. We've seen what Canada has put on their international travel websites. We've also seen what the UK government has put on in Ghana's country profile. And it looks like the threat that is affecting Burkina Faso is affecting our international image. Is this founded?
No, I think the content and the real understanding that one gets, one from the Canadian alert or travel advisory and that of the UK, are not directly linked to developments in Burkina Faso. Both alerts make a general reference to insecurity within the sub-region. Indeed, I would wish our listeners to also be aware that on the same dates, respectively, that Canada and the UK government issued those alerts, they issued similar alerts in respect of Côte d'Ivoire, for instance. So they're looking broadly at the sub-region that we call West Africa, bordering on the Sahel, going to the Sahara. They're looking at, the infestation of these areas with Islamist terrorist groups and so on and so forth, and their recent activities. And they are deducing, coupled with, the kidnapping cases, that their citizens in Ghana should exercise a higher degree of alertness or caution. But the alert is not specifically linked to terrorism. Indeed, they elaborate that petty crime, they even elaborate civil unrest, they elaborate a number of threats to individual security. And terrorism is one of them. But all of these are non-specific. Indeed, if they have specific intelligence, they wouldn't put it out in the public domain. They would rather share that intelligence with the state authorities and then collaboratively work together to see how they can stem, the tide or something like that.
That's interesting, Colonel Boaje. However, we have seen that a Burkinabe man was seen with a loaded gun in a Catholic church in northern Ghana. And this could be, in a way, related to what happened in Burkina Faso, where persons were shot with guns in a Catholic church. Would that be a fair inference to make?
Well, you and I can make that inference. As we speak now, I would argue that it is only the state authorities of Ghana, whether it's the DNR, whether it's national security, or whether it's the police, i.e. the CID, who can make a very firm deduction Now, this individual who was armed, per se, wouldn't be a terrorist. They need to now look at a number of pieces of information. They look to check his mobile phones, and as you know, he had 3 of them. They need to trace the source of the weapon that he had. Fortunately, there was a serial number or registration number on it, that if you fed into some of the arms registers, nationally owned or UN or otherwise, you might be able to trace the source of that weapon. Then, of course, upon professional investigation. But I would wish to, caution that we should not, as individuals, lay people as we are, we should not jump to conclusions that this guy is a terrorist and he's linked with developments in Burkina Faso. On the other hand, I'm not saying that he's not linked. We must wait for the to come out with that intelligence or that piece of credible information that this guy was linked to developments in Cote d'Ivoire. Because he had been with us for about 5 weeks, if the information is correct. He had been employed. We are more concerned about how we're managing the entire situation. Because as a refugee, he should not have been employed by anybody. He should have been encamped in a place that is controlled, managed by UNHCR in collaboration with our national authorities. So if refugees are entering this country and they filter out into places that they choose and can find themselves employment and blend into the local community, that is where the concern is.
Okay.
So I would want to assure us that we must wait on the police. And I've always argued that the police owe it as a duty. I mean, how many weeks now? Is it a week or so? And we've not heard anything. Yes, we've not heard anything substantive from the authorities as to where they are with the investigation. Whether we can go to sleep, of course, we need to be vigilant as we've been told. That culture of national thinking that they don't owe any explanations to society, it is wrong, because terrorism is fought at the local level, of course, plus the state level. There are a lot of things that the local communities need to do, the individuals. So if we are not being told what the correct picture is, who is this guy? Why was he at the church? Maybe, for all you know, like in the case of our former president, Mahama, maybe he's got a mental issue. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So it is only, and I want to emphasize it, it is only the police or the state authorities that can come back and tell us that this is what we found. And we have dealt with it in this way or that way, and want to assure you that we're on top of the game, and so on and so forth. That culture of silence on the part of our national authorities, I don't think helps the cause or the effort in fighting some of these threats.
So, Colonel, in your professional opinion, from what we know so far, do we have reason to be worried about the threat of terrorism?
You need to nuance that response. You cannot be an island of safety and security and stability in an ocean of instability. So if all around us there is instability, we cannot sit in Ghana and claim that we are safe. So in that context, we in Ghana need to be concerned. We need to take all the precautionary measures and the whole range of things that the authorities are doing. And there is more that they can do. So yes, we need to be worried, but we don't need to be alarmed. One of the strategic objectives of the terrorists is to dislocate society. Put us into a state of panic and fear, which will have economic consequences, and that will not be good for us. So yes, we need not to panic, but we need to be very, very vigilant. And I think on other platforms, this has been disaggregated as to what individuals should be looking out for, the precautions that they need to take, and what, of course, the state itself, has to be doing. And I argue that the state must, from time to time, keep us posted, up to date, with what it is that they are doing and why they think that we must not be worried. If we hear all of these news, Canadian government issues an alert, and 4 days later, the UK government issues another alert, and for all you know, the US might jump in, or the French, or whatever. Citizens are not stupid. They will be forced to draw their own conclusions, and those conclusions may not be the right conclusions, and it will enhance or worsen that state of panic, which is not good for us.
So apart from informing the public, which I've said so well, what are some of the other measures that we must be implementing by now?
You mean the individuals?
No, as a state, before we get to the individual level. What
there are a whole lot of things. For instance, look at how dark our communities are. You see, then darkness provides a very good cover for some of these activities. So, yes, it may be long-term, but we need to lighten up, our streets and our communities. For instance, as we speak now, are all university campuses, littered, virtually littered with CCTVs? Can you say the same thing about our hospitals, our schools, filling stations, malls, and so on and so forth? You can answer that question, or our listeners can answer that question. For instance, as we speak now, have our not trade unions, the transport union, say GPRTU, have they been sensitized enough about the incidence of terrorism and what it is that they can do? And I'll give you one example. For instance, can the unions make a policy to install CCTVs on all commercial transport, and then go ahead and have a contract with a security company to install tracking devices? I'm saying this in the context of the hijacking that took place in the central region. That if my information is right, up to about 10 vehicles were stopped and searched and robbed. You see, and the transport unions to which these vehicles and their drivers belong, they didn't know what was happening. If they had tracking devices with a monitoring center looking at the progress or the route that their members were taking and so on, all of these could have helped. You see, the link, communication link between some of these entities with the police, hotlines that they can call.
Okay.
Police patrol, for instance. Our police patrolling our highways, not the static points that we find where they flag you, pull you to the side of the road, show me. No. Actually, on motorbikes and on vehicles, moving up and down within certain stretches of highways. There are a whole lot of things that they can do. Of course, in general, police visibility. As we speak, do you see the police within the society? You don't see them. You see. So the sense that one gets, indeed the sense that these criminals will get is that, and the criminals know the community, they know the society. They know routes. In fact, they know where all the police static points are. And they can adopt evasive tactics and avoid those checkpoints. You see. I don't know what it is that the police is doing, but as an individual, as a citizen, I'm not seeing it. And indeed, it is not being put in print, and the police has not embarked on a public information campaign using all the facilities, like media houses, like going to schools, like, you see what I mean?
Yes.
To actually sensitize the population. It looks like what we're doing is ad hoc. You gather a couple of churches together somewhere and have a talk with them. You say that we're doing something, but is that something sufficient? Is it carefully coordinated? Is a strategy developed? Is it printed? Is it disseminated? So that everybody from the top down know about the general context and know the specific roles that they can play, so that together we achieve collective security or collaborative security. That I'm not seeing. But I wouldn't say that the authorities are not doing something. They definitely are. They are on our borders. There are certain facilities, certain localities, and so on and so forth. But how they interface with the wider society, I think there are a number of gaps that can be exploited by some of these criminal or terrorists.
Hello, Colonel.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we are finding it difficult to hear you. So if you can please reposition yourself. I was going to ask that, away from the police specifically, we recently found that some 300 Burkinabe came into the country to seek asylum. And we would expect, in the face of course, the terror threats, the terror attacks that have occurred across the border, we would expect that this could possibly increase given the state of affairs there. How should we react?
Well, the number, what number did you mention?
300. This was on one occasion. 300 people came into the country.
The 300 might have been maybe a month or two ago. When the Burkinabe things were happening, I think the Tamale or whatever, the information on the internet from very credible sources, including some UN agencies and so on, will put the number at about 450. Then if you look at the dates on which they put out that information, and then I'm doing my own, I'm marking my own map, more or less, like it's not on the wall, it's on my laptop, marking all the incidents and looking at the last 6 here and 3 here and that. We probably will be talking in the region of 400 plus. And these will be the recorded ones, not those that, are cross borders and footways and pathways and so on. You see. So that number is likely to be higher than the 300.
Okay.
But the management of that number, there are international laws and regulations and protocols dealing with how you manage refugees. The refugees have a right to be in Ghana. That we know. But that right does not extend to they being anywhere they want and doing whatever. Because if we allow that to happen, the criminals and the terrorists will infiltrate along with the refugees. So we need to strengthen our monitoring, capacities or capabilities on the borders. I believe we've done that. But to the extent that this guy at Tamale was able to, blend in the society for about 5 weeks, and then go to church, maybe to go and stake the church or whatever it is, nobody knows. Only the police would know. There is a bit of concern.
On the other hand, Colonel, there's also the menace of unauthorized entry points into the country. They are part of this country, and I remember during the clamor for a new voter register, some people were asking that. Some people have breakfast in Ghana and have lunch in Burkina Faso. The same can be said about Togo and La Côte d'Ivoire. How secure are our borders?
There is no border that is very hard or absolutely hard. Some borders are very hard. Some are, soft and porous and so on and so. But we know that in our part of the world, our borders are a bit more porous than elsewhere. So you need now to develop a strategy. And that strategy invariably will be to co-opt the villages that are in the border areas. See, I believe that there will be pastors there, there will be teachers there, there will be some, business elements there. The state authorities know how to use some of these entities to gather information. You see, the best intelligence will come from the local community because they are there. They know themselves. So when they find a stranger, look at the stranger, suspect that this guy may be up to something. If they are well educated, well sensitized, then they get in touch with the police. So the police, the immigration, the customs, the BNI, the national security, the armed forces, you name them, they cannot be in every village around our borders. But they can use the villages or the villages. You see, the palm wine tappers and picto brewers and all sorts of people. I know the state does that, you see, but to the extent that this is not a normal situation. This is an abnormal situation. So we need now to enhance that capability. In fact, I would argue, using your platform, that what we need at this moment in time is more people, police, in the communities to gather information, gather crime-related information, gather terrorist-related information. More than police, they're all fine at the checkpoints that our societies and so on. But how many CID very well trained that we have, I don't know. And indeed, what is it that we teach our police recruits? I want to assume that the work of crime intelligence will be a subject that is taught at the police depot before the police come out. Because as soon as they get on the road, they're going to be confronted with that reality. And if they've had some basic training that they can build upon. But the point I'm trying to make is that probably if we have 100 CID, we should now be thinking of maybe 1,000. You see, so with them on the ground, working with the local communities, before we even go to the electronic side of intelligence, what we can gather from mobile phones and mobile communications and so on and so forth.
Okay.
That presence on the ground in the local communities, I think will do us good.
Colonel, having had this conversation with you, I am tempted to ask, are we ready?
Readiness is work in progress because situations change. And that's the point that our conversation is centering on. 5 years ago, Ghana was not like what it is now. In fact, even 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago. So as the situation changes, your readiness to address the threats to the nation's security must commensurately or proportionately be also enhanced. You see, so yes, we are ready. Not that I have friends in the system, but I know that ordinarily the authorities will be up and doing. I know that our presence on the borders has been enhanced. I know that, it's not a secret. We all know it, that the U.S. is assisting us with certain capabilities like cyber crime, all of which are related, to national security issues. So yes, our readiness is work in progress. We need to constantly, continuously improve upon our readiness or state of readiness. One of the concerns that I have is what I've said already, that security cannot be provided only by the state authorities. The state authorities must work, in concert with the local community. And if I walk away from my home now and get out there, I'm not going to see too many Ghanaians who are sensitized enough that when they see X, they must, report B or something like that. That aspect, I think, is a weakness in the security architecture as we have it now, or the security, umbrella that we seek to create.
Colonel, a big part of our readiness centers on equipping the security agencies, doesn't it? I mean, you've already spoken about the numbers, which we know are inadequate considering that our police-to-citizen ratio. But in terms of equipment and guns and the like, that is also lacking, isn't it?
I think in some context, you see, I am an ardent believer in translating ideas and thoughts on paper in the form of policies and strategies and action plans. If you don't do that, you don't go through that process of translating thoughts and ideas onto paper, you might lose sight of some of the delicate aspects of whatever it is that you are dealing with. So the police will make a case that they need helicopters. Yes, indeed, they need helicopters. They need drones. Yes, indeed, they need drones. They need four-wheel drives. Yes, they need. They need saloon cars. Yes, they need a whole range of equipment. The question is, what analysis was done to try and identify the different threats and then identify the commensurate capabilities that will be required to address each of these threats? And then on balance to argue that since the state is not going to be able to resource us 100%, how can we get a helicopter that helps us to transport police quickly, that can be used for aerial patrols, that can be used for communications and so on and so forth? You see, I'm not saying they're not doing that. But when I hear that the police have been giving saloon vehicles, and if I step out of my house very early in the morning, I see children in police saloon vehicles. You see what I mean? That capability, that asset, is being misapplied. It's become a welfare equipment more than equipment that must be used to enhance national security.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So equipment, yes, they're not going to have everything they need. But government after government, each government tries to resource the police. And let us also remember that equipment are not everlasting. So when I hear arguments that, when we came, the police didn't have anything, it's not like that. Police didn't have anything. There wouldn't have been any police. And the same goes for the armed forces. It goes for all sectors of national, life. That the government prior met some of the needs, but they didn't have all the resources to meet all the needs. And therefore, it becomes work in progress that continuously, constantly, the police need to be, call it retooling, whatever it is. You see, it's work that must continue. Because you buy a vehicle today, given the number and times and places where the police will drive their vehicles, don't expect that vehicle that you put on the road, police inventory today, after 1 year, will be the same vehicle. They might not have tires. They might not have the batteries. Certain things will go wrong. You see, then sometimes we even budget for the equipment before we realize that we have not budgeted for the fueling. You see what I mean? So you can give the vehicles to the police, but the vehicles arrive at the police stations or wherever, and the police haven't got the budget to fuel the vehicles. And many cases where people go to police stations, they need a service. Police says, look, this is the vehicle, but there's no fuel in it. If you can put the fuel in, we'll assist you. You see, it is a very comprehensive arrangement, a very comprehensive list of things that the police need.
Okay.
But whether the police is asking, because my good friend Kofi Bentel elsewhere has said that the police is asking for wrong things. I mean, given the security threats that we have, kidnapping, whatever, is it helicopters that we need, for instance? I'm not saying we don't need helicopters. But what are the helicopters going to do to check the spate of kidnapping or hijacking or armed robberies or whatever it is that occur in the night, for instance, when helicopters, even if they are afloat, may not be of too much use? So all of us, and I want to believe, I've made a point already, that none of us, wherever we are, should think that it is our business to determine what it is that we want to do. It is a business of the entire society because we are created, we are established to provide a service to the citizens. And therefore the citizens, look, let me jump here and say, you've heard of police, is it police reform? Professionalization.
Yes.
And I've been asking, why are Ghanaians not being told about how the police is reforming and professionalizing itself? Because they are the beneficiaries. And indeed, in our universities, somewhere, there are individuals who are teaching policing in democracy. There are students who are learning. Then, of course, there are individuals who want to know how our police is being geared to protect all of us. And yet, professionalization of the police becomes a police business with the Ministry of Interior. And the ordinary Ghanaian doesn't know anything about it.
Okay.
I ask questions. I mean, it cannot be that way. And it shouldn't be that way. You see, we need to learn that all of us, when I was in the armed forces, I was in there so that together under my different or respective commanders, we'll be able to provide a service in accordance with the Constitution to the state. And therefore, we shouldn't be the authority unto ourselves. Ghanaians need to know how the army is being trained, how it's being equipped, how it's being courted, how its welfare issues are being looked after, and so on and so forth. They may here and there have some suggestions to give, to make, to help all of us. So the equipment thing, yes, government is doing something, and government must continue to do that something.
Okay.
But the police must learn, as Kofi Bentil has said, to ask for the right things.
And I love how, Colonel, you spread the responsibility, not by absolving government of what they need to do, but you also really involve the citizenry in what we must do. So if we are going to take it down that route, how can I recognize that the person sitting by me in church has a loaded gun or not? How do I know?
Well, if the gun is already in the church building, I've been arguing, it's too late. You see, security is provided in concentric circles or layers. So you take the church building and the congregants within the church building as what it is that you want to protect. The protection must not be inside that building. You step outside, there must be a layer at the entrance, the different doors or gates that lead into the church building itself. Then you get into the compound, there must be another layer. It could be in the form of a wall with a gate. Now that gate, you must have protection there. And if indeed, depending on the landscape, you could even go further afield. You see what I mean? But
yes,
between the gate on the street or the road and the church building and inside the church building, there are a whole lot of measures, if I should put it that way, that the church can take. But if the weapon is already in the church building, it's too late. Now, why do I say so? Using guns by any criminal or by terrorists is only one of the methods. What if this guy had come strapped with explosives, and he was not even the one to do the explosion? There is somebody out there with a mobile phone or some other device that the person can then trigger and remotely explode that individual in the church building, together with those who had gone there close to him to interrogate him. So explosive devices are also another. Then you have another method, which is that they load a vehicle with explosives, drive at top speed to crash through the gate towards the building, and at wherever that they think is convenient, explode the whole vehicle. So the whole vehicle now becomes a bomb. That is one method. The other method is what we've seen in Cote d'Ivoire, in Burkina Faso, where they drive on motorbikes, and as they are approaching the church premise, they start firing. You see, so when you have scanners at a church entrance, you're basically dealing with a person who is entering the church with a knife, with a gun, maybe with an explosive device. If it's a gun, fine, you are lucky. If it's a knife, yes, you are lucky. But if it's an explosive device, at that church entrance, the door itself, the explosion can take place. And the consequences will be there for all of us to see. See, it is what do you call it in media language? You see, that news item that a bomb has exploded or terrorists have exploded a bomb and killed, blah, blah, blah. That's all they are looking for, to influence the mindset of society. So whatever it is that the state is doing and the churches are doing, I would recommend that they use what in peacekeeping we call scenario-based training. You list a number of scenarios. What if this happens? What do we do? What if this happens? What do we do? That is more practical in approach than saying that we are looking for terrorists. Who is a terrorist? Is it the beggar who is sitting at your church entrance, who, for all you know, may be a terrorist, strapped with explosive devices? You get the sense that I'm trying to make?
Yes, I do.
Yes. So there is a lot more that we need to do, and that is what the sensitization reduces to. Not the word sensitization itself, because the ordinary citizen, including myself, may not readily know what it is that I need to sensitize myself about. But if I'm told in very specific details that I could be attacked by a person wielding a knife, a person armed with guns, with explosives, a person who may be driving a vehicle loaded with explosives. What about even the roadside bombs? The whole range of scenarios that terrorists have used, that we have become privy to because they've happened elsewhere. That is what the sensitization needs to be about.
Mm. How about if you move it out of that? Now, I was just having a conversation with a friend who was telling me, for instance, that in the wake of the recent spate of kidnappings that we saw, there's a heightened fear for her children when they're going to school, and what have you. In the first place, like we did in the case of terrorism, is this fear founded? I mean, are children in danger when they are going to school?
It is founded. Because if you lived in a society where you didn't even have a vernacular word for kidnapping, then I can go into history, the history of the wars that Ashantis and Ewes and Akwamus and Ghans and so on were fighting. And the closest that I can come to kidnapping was a word called panyaring. And panyaring was basically when you kidnap somebody who is a relative or a relation to another person who owes you a debt. And therefore you are kidnapping the person and holding the person until the debt is settled. And it became a modus operandum in those days, Akwamus and Ghans will be running around kidnapping people, you owe me this, you owe me that. But in very recent times, kidnapping has not, been part of the lexicon in our conversation. But the police has the records. Normally they say, only, I don't have my spectacles, so I cannot read. But they're not too many. But the issue of kidnapping, like all other threats, is not in the numbers. It's in the perception of insecurity. That you don't know when the kidnapper, the time, the place that a kidnapper is going to choose to attack its next victim. And as we see, girls have been involved, maybe some other individuals have been involved, foreigners have been involved, foreigners who are here as investors have been involved, diplomats have been involved. You see, so the idea that you don't know who is going to be the next target, that is the fear that kidnapping is sowing in society. And you've mentioned school kids. In the U.S. and elsewhere where this has become a problem, you find parents leading their children or driving them right to the school premise, entering and handing the children over. The sensitization is that no child must be allowed to board any vehicle, if they don't know that the person collecting that child is the parent. They have deployed police onto school compound. You see it. They have installed CCTVs. The school children or pupils have been sensitized through certain drills as to where to run to, where to hide, if you hear any firing, that kind of stuff. Now I'm saying that this is not raising an alarm. You see, so we cannot sit in Ghana here and claim that if we do these things, we are creating or raising an alarm. That is not the case. The thing is, we must, accept that we are under threat, and therefore the time now is to prepare in very concrete ways to address the threats, not to allow. I've used the word minimalism or minimalist elsewhere.
Okay.
So at this stage, when it is low level, terrorism hasn't happened on our territorial, soil, and therefore what we're doing is that we've beefed up our presence on the borders and so on and so forth. The next time it happens on our territory, then we up the game. That is the minimalism. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Okay.
Sometimes if you take the worst case scenario and then you go for the highest level of awareness and vigilance and so on, you probably forestall many, if not all, of the attempts.
Mm-hmm.
And I would wish to advocate for that we need a comprehensive strategy, a strategy that must be known and understood by segments of society. And I've mentioned the transport union.
Yeah.
If the ONA and the VVIP are driving today from Kumasi to Accra and back or wherever, and they don't have tracking devices on those buses, and they don't have a monitoring center 24/7, somebody sitting, looking at the screens and looking at what or where each particular vehicle is, why it has stopped. You see what I mean? Then something is amiss. And the time now is to engage with the communities, the local citizenry. It's in our interest. I don't think GPRTU will cry, if not that the state is going to legislate, but they will see sense in why it is that they must have tracking devices and CCTVs and communication, radio communication or telephone communication on the buses. And indeed, if they so choose, there are so many retired soldiers and police officers who are sitting at home who are looking for work.
Okay.
They can recruit some of them, as we do on flights. Each time you are flying, wherever you're going, these days, you must know that there is an anti-hijacking capability on the plane.
Yeah.
Besides reinforcing the pilot's cabin and so on, there are individuals who are allowed to carry arms. And they are well positioned in the cabin in such a way that they'll be able to, address the incident. It will not be too much for ONA, VVIP, or 20-seater, 10-seater to have one person on the vehicle, trained, even if not carrying arms, trained in such a way that they can assist the driver and the other passengers to defeat whatever it is. These are some of the measures that we need to be thinking about, and not to assume that things are normal. Things are not normal, because all around us, and I come back to the point I made, we cannot be an island of peace, security, and stability in an ocean of insecurity. It cannot be.
Right. Colonel.
Yes, please.
Colonel, thank you. We want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. You've been such a great help on
You're
dealing
welcome.
with this wide array of issues. Colonel Abuaje, retired, was the guest that we just spoke to. He is an author, conflict analyst, and member of the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana. It's been quite a conversation we had. In the first place, you need to, according to Colonel, you need to train yourself based on scenarios. So if you're an organization, you need to ask yourselves, what would we do if someone was coming over with a bomb? Or someone was doing A, B, or C to threaten the persons who frequent where we are. Number one. Number two, he's encouraging government to have a detailed policy on dealing with the current security challenges that we have and sensitize and educate the public on that. He also mentioned, for you, the parents out there, when you're taking your kids to school, sensitize your children that no one at all takes you from school. No one but me. And make sure that you drop your children off at the school gate and you watch them enter before anything happens. We need to be careful. We need to watch it when we are out there. and look at the security situation with a more critical look. Of course, beginning the conversation, he also mentioned that it is true that a number of these incidents we report on happened outside of our borders, and the UK and Canada alerts that we are seeing may be generally regional issues. But it does not mean that we don't have to be careful. We definitely have to take care of ourselves. It's 7 minutes past 9 here on the Super Morning Show. Enjoy 99.7 FM. Have you learned anything new when you were with us? There's anything particular you'd like to highlight from the conversation with Colonel Festus Abuaje? Send us in a message on 0244 340 437. Is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion? 0244 340 437. Is there anything you have observed going out there? Any lapse you've observed there that you like to draw our attention to? We'll definitely speak to the authorities. Of course, we had really wanted to speak with the Minister for the Interior. We've been working on speaking with them to see our sense of preparedness in dealing with these issues. Unfortunately, so far, we have been unsuccessful. We are still working on that, and we'll bring that conversation to you as and when the days progress. Now, however, we are bringing you the Joy Business Minute. It's a bit delayed, pardon us. And after which, we'll say hi to our sponsors, and then when we come back, there is more. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome to the Joy Business. Hello and welcome to the Joy Business Minute.
Daryl and Karen here.
The Controller and Accountant General Kwesi Kwening Bosumpim has rejected allegations that the government is working to privatize public sector payroll. Government's proposal to privatize its payroll was so that it can manage the system more efficiently to deal with the problem of ghost names.
Former Finance Minister said Tekpe has warned of bigger consequences considering the rate at which government is borrowing to add to the debt stock, which is almost 200 billion cedis. The minority has cautioned that Ghanaians may have to brace themselves to pay taxes as a result of the troubling debt situation.
World Bank Country Director Henry Kurali is bringing his duty tour in the country to an end by close of this month. Mr. Kurali has been a country director for Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone since June 2015.
Elsewhere, the UK and South Korea have signed an outline free trade agreement that seeks to maintain existing trade arrangements post-Brexit. International Trade Secretary Liam Fox signed the deal with his South Korean counterpart Yoon Moon-yi in Seoul.
And that's the latest.
Catch you at 3:06.
At Afrodan, we believe that many of the problems people have with their health is as a result of the way they sit. In other words, your chair can kill you. Here's Dr. Marcus Mann of the Chiropractic and Wellness Center.
What you have to remember is that the spine is the lifeline to your body, and posture is the window to that spine. Now, posture is affected by your daily activities and habits like sitting. That's why at the Chiropractic and Wellness Centers, we recommend what I believe to be the best chairs available for preventing not only subluxations, but also other health problems that you may not be aware of. And that's Rabami and Mobilex chairs. Unfortunately, on a daily basis, I have to correct the effects of this poor sitting habit in our businessmen and businesswomen. Always remember, optimum spine equals optimum health.
So, for the sake of your health, buy Rabami or Mobilex chairs from Afrodan. We're on the first floor of the Swansea Shopping Arcade. Telephone 663-085.
Hey, Kwame, what's up here? My brother, my wife has been diagnosed with cancer. What? My brother is here with kidney disease too. Oh, yeah.
Do you know the World Health Organization estimates that over 16,000 new cases of cancers are diagnosed annually in Ghana, and kidney diseases account for 10% of all medical admissions to Kolebu?
But thanks to Glycocritical Illness Plan, GSIP, I have spent over 20,000 Ghana cedis on my younger brother's disease. Yeah. What is GSIP?
Glycocritical Illness Plan, GSIP, provides you with financial support when diagnosed with any critical illness or dread disease such as cancers, strokes, kidney failures. Speak to GlycoLife today on 0302-218-500 for your GSIP policy. It is definitely in our interest to survive. GlycoLife, we cushion you for life.
Sleep A great journey lies ahead of us all, but we all have different paths carved out for us. When choosing your path, make sure you choose a partner you can trust, a partner with integrity who will always stand with you and give you the support you need when you need it. No matter who you are and where you are in your journey in life, you are very significant and so is the path you're on. Consolidated Bank Ghana cherishes financial security as much as you do and shares the same values as you, and that is why we are the right financial partner to stand with you. We are now one of the largest banks in Ghana, and we are ready to partner and work with you. CBG, we stand with you.
Seesaw, up and down. Seesaw, up and down.
Dear Ghana, up and down is good for some things, but your internet is not one of them. It shouldn't go from 4G to 2G like child's play. Get true 4G LTE internet for grown-ups. Grab a Surfline 4G LTE MiFi device today. At Surfline, we give you 10 gigabytes, then add 5 gigabytes of data when you make your first purchase. Call us on 0302 745 777 or visit any of our retail outlets and get the internet you deserve. Yours truly, Surfline. It's about time.
At UBA, we pay close attention to your every detail, making you feel like a VIP every time you visit us. We have the strongest financial and technological background, making us #1 in risk management. We have offices in New York, Paris, and London, and presence in 20 countries across Africa. UBA has successfully operated in Ghana for almost 15 years, with 28 branches throughout the country. Visit us today at a branch near you. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Once upon a time, there lived a milk called Cowbell.
Cowbell?
Yes, and everyone loved it. It made delicious cereals, beverages, and the most enjoyable porridge. And one day, something amazing happened.
What?
Cowbell came to my glass of water, so I mixed it and I stirred it, and it turned into delicious and nutritious milk. You want to try it?
Yes, but this is pink.
Yes, because this is the strawberry flavor.
I love strawberry. It's yummy.
And refreshing. That's Cowbell, our milk, full of vitamins and minerals, so you can grow up to be a strong boy.
Yay!
Next time, I'll tell you which other flavor came to my glass of water, okay?
There are more?
Cowbell, our milk. There's something for everyone.
Cowbell, our milk.
Coffee in your cup and joy on the set. The Super Morning Show is always the best.
shocks me how people can use such beautiful religions of peace and love to perpetrate such evil. It's an excuse, and nothing about Islam or Christianity encourages people to do some of the things that we are afraid of today. It's 17 minutes past 9 here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. We are looking at the imminent danger that terrorism and kidnapping poses to the country in the light of the new terror alerts that have been issued by the UK and Canada. We just finished off speaking with Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired.
But you turn the other cheek. Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance.
He's an author, conflict analyst, and member of the Council on Foreign Relations Ghana, and he has been speaking very strongly that government should by now have published an entire policy or a strategy for dealing with the situation, and which involves public education and sensitizing the public. And speaking of sensitizing the public, he's done a bit of that by saying that, look, if you're a leader in church, you manage any large facility or area, you should be doing scenario-based training so that you ask yourself, if God forbid someone came over with a knife, someone came over on a motorbike with a gun, someone came with an explosive device, how do we defend ourselves against something like that? In so doing, we'll be properly or adequately prepared to deal with these situations. And the same works with individuals, so that if, for instance, you're driving your kid to school, you need to make sure that you drop her off or him off, and he or she walks inside for you to know that they are there, and then sensitize them that no one else picks you up apart from me.
My faith alive, love is found. People killing people.
So we just got that. Now, we are not done speaking about what government must do, because we want to understand fully what as a government thinks, how things must happen as a government to keep the citizenry safe. It's the primary responsibility of any government to keep the citizens safe. MP Nkia Brankwa will be he'll be giving us some insights on that. He's a senior programs officer and team leader at the Security and Sector Governments team. For Democratic Development CDD Ghana, he'll be joining us very, very shortly. But the brand new Ebo White play I Want Your Wife shows at the National Theatre on the 6th, 7th, 13th and 14th of July at 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. daily. From now till the 16th of June 2019, the early bird tickets are selling for 60 Ghana cedis only, saving you a whopping 20 Ghana cedis for that ice cream. WhatsApp 0504 050 554 6030. And for details and inquiries, you can also go on rovemanproductions.com and get your tickets. Let me go straight to the phone lines now and speak with Mr. Abrampa Mensah. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, my brother.
What's the best way for the states to react when your key partners like UK and Canada are describing you as a terror threat?
Come again, bro.
I'm asking, what's the best way for the states to react if key partners like the UK and Canada are describing you as a country under the threat of terrorism?
Let me say good morning to our listeners. In fact, it's not the foreign nations describing Ghana as a destination for terrorism. And the analysis around the regional fear, especially what is happening in our closest neighboring countries, makes everybody aware that we are potential destination for terrorism. So it's not the nations trying to describe Ghana as such. It's something that Ghana, through intelligence by itself, be ready for.
Great. So what's the ideal reaction?
Well, the ideal reaction is what the Deputy IG, Mr. James Opombonu, has started, warning and creating awareness to all citizens. In fact, we need to intensify sensitization education as to the potential of it, and therefore people be careful in strangers in their communities, and create a link between communities and the law enforcement agencies. Even if we should create short codes. So if you find any strangers that you don't know, you suspect something, you can quickly alert the security agencies to react.
So, Mr. Brumper, we have seen some of these steps being taken so far. like you allude to, but is it enough?
Come again, my brother.
I was asking that, are the steps that we are taking enough?
There are two things in security. When you're trying to create awareness, you also have to handle it in such a way that you don't create fear and panic. I listened to a statement that I wouldn't like to refer to. The way the statement was being described, if you're a citizen and you don't take care, you will not even go to church. Security awareness creation is very delicate. You need to manage it in such a way that you create the awareness as to the specifics that you want your citizens to be able to aware of, but you don't also create the atmosphere of fear in such a way that people will even stop their children from going to school. It's a balance that we need to. That's why I think the security agencies are not coming up in haste, but they are trying to design a way that will make it possible for them to communicate the balance.
And speaking of communication, you do drive a convincing point when you say that they are hastening slowly so that they communicate in balance. But isn't the public education also important so that by now the public should be sensitized and aware of what must be done?
Sure, I agree with you perfectly. In fact, I have also said it somewhere. But the problem is, it's a new phenomenon that is coming out. Let me emphasize the point that security awareness in Ghana in general is low. And that there are so many examples you can cite to buttress that point. You're seeing motor riders driving against traffic. You're seeing petrol tankers that have had accidents, people running to scoop petrols from it. You've seen, so there's so many dangers. Seeing heavy rains coming, people trying to drive their car through floods and other things. So security awareness in general is very low. A case has happened here, I think in Canada also, that somebody came there, played draft with them, drank with them. They never knew the fellow had come in for to assassinate somebody. But they never reported to anybody. Somebody they don't know. And it's general in Ghana. Sometimes you're going out, you see somebody standing in front of your gate. The fellow will be there. You don't question the fellow. You don't know him in the area. You drive and go to work. Before you come back, your house has been burgled. So there are so many security lapses that we have. And in communicate all these, I think it should be a package. We can't say because there's threat of terrorism in the country, so we are going to do education on terrorism. I do think, yes, they should pace slowly, design a holistic message and approach on security and drive it home. But there should be targeted education around our borders as to the entries and exits.
In what time? Because then again, every minute that passes counts.
Yes, time frame is very much important. But as I said, you can see bits and pieces have been started. At least because of the pressure and the warning signs coming up, they have started bits and pieces. There were police officers deployed to some churches, I think, since last month or so. Mr. Opomboni has come out in a statement. And so I think that there will be something that they will design. But as I said, I believe they are trying, I don't speak for the police or the security agents, but I believe they are trying to manage the situation in such a way that they are able to communicate and communicate well so it doesn't create any fear and panic.
Okay, so what would be your advice to the general citizen, to the average citizen listening to us?
Sure. I like the way the media is also handling it. I mean, in some countries, the media will handle this case by quoting and mentioning specifics, showing pictures of people who have been terrorized and other things. That is the negative aspect that I wouldn't like to be part as a communication. Yes, so we need to go slowly and do exactly what you are doing. We have to be wary of who comes around us. We have to be wary of what happens around us. In traveling, that's the UK people said. At night, you have to be very careful where you go, where you come from. Some of these things are very much important. We don't allow our children to be playing around at late or going to night dances. I mean, you have to monitor wherever they move to and be aware of wherever they are. Give them your phone numbers as to be able to call you at any time when they are in danger or where they cannot find their way home. I mean, these are some of the tidbits we need to be giving to our family members and our children.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abrampa Mensah, for joining us today.
You're welcome, my brother.
You just heard me speak to PNK Abrampa Mensah. He's a senior programs officer and team leader for security sector governance team at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana. Bringing us to 27 minutes past 9 here on the Super Morning Show. He believes that, look, the police are hastening slowly. It's true that a lot of communication has not been heard from their end, but really, it's also important that they communicate in a balanced form so that they don't cause panic, but they still make us aware that there's a clear present threat. A bit like what I was saying with Enimwa earlier, you need to communicate confidence to your ward if he or she is writing a BC without necessarily making her feel like everything is okay and this is just any other exam, because that's not the case. I have such a treat for you coming up in just about 5 or 6 minutes. I'll be telling you about it in a moment. But GCB, your largest bank in Ghana, offers salaried workers with their salary accounts at GCB. GCB, your largest bank in Ghana, offers salaried workers with their salary accounts at GCB personal loans within 24 hours. With GCB's 24-hour personal loans, salaried workers can meet their financial obligations with a smile. Visit any of our 180 branches nationwide or call 0800-422-422 for a GCB 24-hour personal loan now. See that dream come true. GCB, your bank for life. We're going to take just a few messages, and when we come back, the Archbishop Dr. Nicholas Duncan Williams has a word for every BECE candidate. It's going to be live here on the Super Morning Show. Stay with us.
The National Service Scheme has begun processing prospective National Service personnel